Did you know that something as natural as honey could turn harmful just by mixing it with the wrong food? Most people think of honey as one of the safest sweeteners out there. In fact, over 60% of households keep honey in their kitchen for everything from tea to toast. But here's the part nobody talks about. Some combinations can actually make honey toxic, or at the very least cancel out its benefits completely. What exactly are these combinations, and how can something so trusted go so wrong? In this video, I'll break down 5 foods or food practices you should never mix with honey, what happens inside your body when you do, and the science behind each one. Before we jump in, leave a comment and tell us, where are you watching from? Let's get into it. Number 1, hot beverages. When you stir honey into a hot drink, whether it's straight boiling water, black tea, or coffee, you're unknowingly damaging many of the beneficial properties that make honey special. Raw honey contains enzymes like diastase, glucose oxidase, and invertase. These enzymes help break down complex sugars into simpler compounds, give honey antioxidant activity, and even produce a small amount of hydrogen peroxide, which has mild antibacterial properties. But enzymes are proteins, and proteins are sensitive to heat. As soon as the temperature of honey climbs above about 40 degrees C, these enzymes begin to denature, meaning their three-dimensional structures unravel and they no longer perform their intended biochemical functions. By the time honey reaches around 60 degrees C, most of its beneficial enzymes have been severely impaired or completely destroyed. Beyond losing enzymes, honey heated above 60 degrees C also undergoes chemical changes that generate compounds like hydroxymethylfurfuryl. HMF forms when fructose, one of the main sugars in honey, dehydrates under heat. At low levels, HMF is considered relatively harmless, but research has shown that at higher concentrations, it can be toxic to liver cells and potentially have pro-carcinogenic effects. In a typical cup of boiling hot tea, you might raise the honey's temperature to 95 degrees C or more, well above the threshold for significant HMF formation. Over time, repeatedly consuming beverages in which honey has been boiled or nearly boiled can produce a higher cumulative burden of HMF. Also, honey is composed of roughly 40–45% fructose, 30–35% glucose, and the rest water, minerals, organic acids, and antioxidants. When you heat honey in a very hot liquid, the ratio of these sugars can shift slightly due to the breakdown of any sucrose, if present, into glucose and fructose. That may sound like a small issue, but it can affect the way your body processes those sugars, potentially spiking blood sugar more dramatically and faster than raw honey would. Raw honey also contains flavonoids and phenolic acids, compounds that scavenge free radicals in the body and reduce oxidative stress. High heat reduces the overall antioxidant capacity. Studies have shown that antioxidant activity in honey can drop by 20–30% when heated to 60–70 degrees C, and even more if heated higher. Why does this matter? Oxidative stress is a factor in chronic inflammation, aging, and many diseases. If you routinely add honey to boiling tea, you're reducing honey's potential to help counteract those processes. Finally, when you add honey to extremely hot liquids, you can irritate your digestive tract. Drinking scalding hot beverages on their own is known to damage the lining of the esophagus over time, increasing the risk of inflammation and, in extreme cases, esophageal cancer. Adding honey doesn't remove that risk. If anything, it can seem soothing at first due to the thick coating texture. But once the temperature cools slightly, the damaged tissues can become sensitive to sugar, leading to a simmering irritation that lingers. The bottom line is clear: never add honey to truly hot or boiling drinks. If you want to sweeten your tea or coffee with honey, always let the beverage cool to a warm temperature, below 40 degrees C, before stirring it in. That way you preserve most of the beneficial enzymes, avoid excess HMF formation, maintain as much antioxidant activity as possible, and protect your digestive tract. Number 2, hot milk or dairy-based drinks. You may have heard that mixing honey with milk is a classic home remedy. honey and warm milk before bed for better sleep, a soothing tonic for a sore throat, and so on. But once milk gets hot enough to scald or boil, combining it with honey runs into many of the same issues as hot water, plus a few additional concerns specific to dairy. Milk is rich in proteins, primarily casein and whey proteins. When you heat milk above 70-75 degrees C, those proteins begin to denature, changing shape and sometimes clumping together. Think of the skin that forms on the surface of scalded milk. At the same time, sugars present in both honey and milk are susceptible to Maillard reactions, which occur when sugars react with amino acids under heat. These reactions produce brown pigments and dozens of byproducts, some of which, like advanced glycation end products, are inflammatory and can contribute to aging and chronic diseases when consumed in high quantities. If you pour boiling milk into honey or vice versa, you accelerate these reactions, creating AGs and compromising the milk's natural protein structure. Raw milk, if unpasteurized, contains enzymes such as lactase, which help break down lactose. Likewise, raw honey's enzymes can assist in digestion. When you heat milk to high temperatures, you kill off the lactase in the milk itself. On top of that, the heat deactivates honey's own digestive enzymes. The result is a drink that not only has reduced nutritional value, but is also harder for some people to digest, especially those who may be marginally lactose intolerant. Removing those enzymes forces your gut to work harder to break down lactose, which can lead to bloating, gas, and discomfort. When milk proteins are denatured by heat, their three-dimensional shapes change and can expose new epitopes, sites on the protein that the immune system recognizes. For someone who is mildly allergic or sensitive to dairy, drinking very hot milk mixed with honey can make symptoms more pronounced. The partially unfolded proteins may interact with antibodies in the gut and trigger an inflammatory response. Even if a person didn't react strongly to cold or lukewarm milk, combining scalded milk with honey might provoke symptoms like hives, stomach cramps, or even respiratory irritation in sensitive individuals. Another issue is that when lactose is heated at high temperatures, some of it rearranges into a molecule called lactulose. Lactulose is often used medically as a laxative or to treat hepatic encephalopathy, a condition where toxins build up in the bloodstream due to liver dysfunction. In small amounts, lactulose isn't harmful. It's even used as a prebiotic to feed friendly gut bacteria. But if you regularly consume milk and honey that have been boiled together, you can end up ingesting more lactulose than your digestive tract is used to. For some people, this can lead to diarrhea, dehydration, and electrolyte imbalance, especially if they already have a sensitive GI system. If you're someone who blends honey into lassi or other yogurt-based smoothies, and you heat the yogurt, as some recipes suggest, you kill off the live cultures, lactobacillus and bifidobacteria strains, that give yogurt its probiotic status. Honey can help those beneficial gut bacteria thrive, but only if they're alive. If the yogurt is heated to pasteurizing temperatures above 72 degrees C for 15 seconds or equivalent, those bacteria are dead, and the honey just becomes another sugar source that your gut microbes will ferment, potentially causing gas, bloating, or even an imbalance in gut flora that can lead to overgrowth of less friendly microbes. In short, never combine honey with scalding hot milk or heat them together. If you want a soothing honey milk drink, gently warm the milk to about 37 to 40 degrees body temperature to slightly above before stirring in your honey. That preserves most of the milk protein structure, keeps live cultures alive if you're using yogurt, and doesn't create excess Maillard reaction byproducts or lactulose. Number 3, equal parts unheated honey and ghee, clarified butter. If you've ever explored Ayurvedic dietary guidelines, you may have come across a rule that says combining honey and ghee in equal proportions without heating them is toxic and can cause imbalances in the body. While Ayurveda frames this in terms of dosha aggravation, some of the underlying concerns have scientific parallels. Honey is a water-based substance, around 17% water to 83% sugars, mostly fructose and glucose, along with trace amounts of amino acids, vitamins, and minerals. Ghee, on the other hand, is nearly 100% fat, mostly saturated fats like butyric acid, conjugated linoleic acid, and various saturated triglycerides. When you combine equal parts honey and ghee, you're essentially asking your digestive system to handle a hydrophilic molecule and a lipophilic molecule simultaneously, with no natural emulsifier present. In cooking, a natural emulsifier like lecithin can keep oil and water together, but pure honey and pure ghee lack that capacity. As a result, the mixture can sit in your stomach and intestines incompletely emulsified, slowing down digestion and absorption. When food remains in the stomach too long without proper emulsification, it can ferment. Bacteria begin to feed on the sugars and the free fatty acids separately, which produces excess gas, bloating, and discomfort. Over time, chronic indigestion like this can lead to mild inflammation of the gastric lining and imbalance in gut flora, which, if persistent, is linked with systemic inflammation. Moreover, ghee contains saturated fats that, when oxidized, can contribute to low-density lipoprotein, LDL, oxidation. Oxidized LDL is more atherogenic, more likely to promote plaque formation in arteries than unoxidized LDL. Eating ghee alone is one thing, but when you combine it with the high sugar content of honey, especially over time, your bloodstream can experience simultaneous surges of glucose and fatty acids. That spike in circulating nutrients can encourage oxidative stress in the blood plasma, creating an environment where LDL oxidation is more likely. In other words, that sugar-fat combo could increase the risk of cardiovascular issues if you consume it regularly. Eating pure sugar, honey, and pure fat, ghee, at the same time without proteins or fiber to slow digestion can throw your body's hormonal signals off balance. Normally, after a mixed meal containing protein, carbs, and fats, your body releases hormones in a coordinated way. Insulin to help shuttle glucose from the bloodstream into cells, cholecystokinin and GLP-1 to signal fullness and stimulate bile release for fat digestion, and glucagon to keep blood sugar from dropping too low after the initial insulin surge. But when you consume simple sugars and saturated fats together, your pancreas may release insulin rapidly to handle the glucose in the honey, while your gallbladder and liver scramble to release bile and enzymes to emulsify and process the ghee's fatty acids. This mismatch can cause a temporary insulin spike followed by a rapid dip in blood sugar, reactive hypoglycemia, plus sluggish fat metabolism, leading to feelings of lethargy, hunger pangs, and potential cravings for more sugar. Over time, this pattern can contribute to insulin resistance, higher triglycerides, and poorer lipid profiles. Saturated fats in ghee, when eaten in excess, also stimulate the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines in certain individuals. Meanwhile, sugar, particularly in large amounts, can also fuel systemic inflammation by promoting the release of advanced glycation end products and increasing oxidative stress. Combining equal parts honey and ghee might seem innocuous in a one-time dosa or laddu, but if it becomes a habit, say nightly spoonfuls of a honey-ghee mixture touted as a health tonic, you're stacking two potential pro-inflammatory agents back to back. The net result can be chronic low-grade inflammation, which is linked to a host of conditions from arthritis to heart disease to metabolic syndrome. While eating a small amount on rare occasions probably won't kill you, the warning is about frequent use, especially if you're being sold honey-ghee elixirs as cure-alls. You're essentially tipping your body into a cycle of insulin spikes, fat processing challenges, and possible gut bacterial imbalance. The bottom line is to avoid mixing equal parts honey and ghee on a regular basis. If you want to use both in your diet, keep them separate. Use ghee as a cooking fat or spread, and drizzle honey on your avocado toast or oatmeal, but don't combine them into a single spoonful. If you do want to try a small honey and ghee concoction for an occasional treat, make sure it's a ratio where honey is less than half the volume, at least 2 parts ghee to 1 part honey, so that the emulsification challenges and rapid sugar-fat mismatch are minimized. Number 4, ripe banana or banana-based smoothies. You may have seen various health blogs or social media influencers raving about honey and banana together, often in smoothies, pancakes, or as a natural remedy for digestion. While bananas and honey each have healthful qualities on their own, combining honey with a very ripe banana, particularly in a simple smoothie or blended drink, can backfire on digestion, blood sugar control, and even respiratory wellness in some people. A ripe banana is roughly 70–75% water, 23% carbohydrates, mostly sugars like fructose, glucose, and sucrose, and a small amount of fiber. As bananas ripen, their starch content turns into simple sugars, making them taste sweeter. Honey, as we know, is almost pure simple sugars itself. When you blend a ripe banana with honey, especially if you don't add fiber-rich ingredients like oats, flaxseed, or vegetables, you create a drink that is nearly all simple sugars. In your small intestine, sugar gets absorbed quickly. But if you're prone to small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or if your natural digestive transit time is slow, some of that sugar can reach the colon partially undigested, where gut bacteria ferment it rapidly. Rapid fermentation produces gases, hydrogen, methane, that lead to bloating, abdominal pain, and flatulence. For someone already sensitive to FODMAPs, a category of fermentable carbs, combining honey, rich in fructose, with ripe banana, also high in fructose, can be a double hit, driving painful gas production. A smoothie made of banana and honey alone can have a glycemic load well over 60, in some cases approaching 80, depending on portion size. When you ingest a high glycemic load meal, your blood sugar spikes rapidly, prompting a large release of insulin. Within 30 to 60 minutes, insulin forces glucose into cells, and your blood sugar may crash below normal baseline levels, leaving you feeling tired, irritable, and craving more quick carbs. Over time, repeated cycles of such spikes and crashes increase the risk of insulin resistance, making you more prone to prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. Bananas contain tryptophan, a precursor to serotonin, the neurotransmitter involved in mood regulation. In a moderate context, like a half a banana or a whole banana with balanced protein and fat, this can actually help mood and sleep. But when you blend a whole, very ripe banana with honey, you push excess fructose into your bloodstream. Fructose, unlike glucose, is metabolized almost entirely by the liver. High amounts of fructose can drive an inflammatory response in the liver, affecting its ability to process other nutrients, including those that help regulate neurotransmitters. If your liver is busy metabolizing fructose, it might produce less serotonin or mismanage the balance between serotonin and other neurotransmitters. The net effect can be mood swings or fatigue that you might not immediately attribute to a sweet smoothie. Ripe bananas have a higher concentration of certain biogenic amines, histamine, tyramine, and phenylethylamine, compounds that form during fruit ripening. Honey can also contain small amounts of histamine, depending on the floral source and how the bees processed pollen. When you combine two foods that both contain histamine, your body can get overloaded if you have a histamine intolerance or are prone to allergic reactions. Symptoms can include nasal congestion, runny nose, headaches, skin flushing, or even asthma-like wheezing in sensitive individuals. Some people who are otherwise fine with eating bananas or honey separately might notice that eating them together triggers mild respiratory or skin symptoms. Blending fruits and honey can create a warm, moist environment that's an ideal breeding ground for bacteria if you don't consume it immediately. Let's say you prepare a large batch of banana honey smoothie and store half in the fridge for later. The combination of warm temperature, even if it's room temperature, and high sugar concentration can speed up microbial growth, both yeast, Candida species, and potentially harmful bacteria like Bacillus cereus. Drinking that smoothie later, even if it looks normal, could introduce higher levels of microbes into your gut, potentially causing digestive upset or mild foodborne illness. In summary, avoid blending ripe bananas and honey by themselves into a simple smoothie. If you want the flavor of banana and the sweetness of honey, do one of the following instead. Use half a green or slightly underripe banana, which has more resistant starch, better for gut health, and less free sugar. Add plenty of fiber-rich ingredients like rolled oats, chia seeds, or leafy greens to slow sugar absorption and reduce fermentation in the colon. Keep portion sizes small, no more than a quarter cup of honey for a full banana-based shake, and consume your smoothie immediately after making it rather than storing it. Number 5, yogurt or curd, especially homemade varieties, at room temperature. Yogurt or curd and honey together might sound like a match made in heaven, creamy, tangy, sweet. Many traditional diets advocate drizzling honey over yogurt for digestive benefits. The probiotics in yogurt plus the honey's natural prebiotic fibers can feed good bacteria. However, under certain conditions, particularly when the yogurt is homemade or not properly cooled, honey can turn from a helpful partner into a problem. Commercially produced yogurt is pasteurized, then inoculated with specific bacterial strains, Lactobacillus bulgaricus, Streptococcus thermophilus, sometimes bifidobacteria. After fermentation, it's rapidly cooled to around 4 degrees Celsius, 39 degrees, and packaged under sterile conditions. When you buy it, it's safe to open and combine with honey immediately because the cold temperature slows microbial activity. Homemade yogurt or curd, however, often sits at warm ambient temperatures, 30-40 degrees or 86-104 degrees, for several hours to allow fermentation. If you add honey to that warm yogurt, even if the honey is raw, you introduce additional sugars and moisture that feed any unwanted bacteria or yeasts lingering in the mixture. In a warm, humid environment, those microbes can multiply rapidly, potentially producing toxins or causing spoilage. If someone then consumes that honey-yogurt combo, they may experience food poisoning symptoms, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, or abdominal cramps. Yogurt typically has a pH around 4.0-4.5, slightly acidic. Honey's pH is around 3.5 to 4.5, depending on the floral source, so both are acidic. Consuming acidic foods can slow gastric emptying, which normally isn't a huge issue, but when you combine 2 acidic foods in generous amounts, you push the total acidity higher than what your stomach lining may be used to. Over time, repeated consumption of highly acidic combinations can irritate the stomach's mucosal barrier, potentially leading to gastritis, inflammation of the stomach lining, or even minor erosions. Moreover, many of honey's enzymes, such as glucose oxidase, are already on the edge of stability in the acidic environment of yogurt. When you mix them, the extra acidity can accelerate enzyme breakdown, reducing the honey's antimicrobial properties. That sets the stage for increased microbial growth in the mixture if it isn't eaten promptly. Raw honey has natural antibacterial qualities thanks to hydrogen peroxide production and other compounds like methyl glyoxal, especially in Manuka honey. But when honey is combined with live yogurt cultures, there's a temporary tug of war in that warm, nutrient-rich environment. The yogurt's lactic acid bacteria want to ferment lactose into lactic acid, while honey's antibacterial compounds try to ward off bacterial overgrowth. In a perfect scenario, this results in a balanced mixture where yogurt bacteria dominate, but honey's yeasts and fungi are kept in check. However, if the temperature is on the higher end, above 25 degrees or 77 degrees, and the mixture sits out for over an hour or two, you can end up with a scenario where certain honey-resistant yeasts, like Saccharomyces cerevisiae, flourish, or other unwanted bacteria multiply. Those microbes can produce excess gas, off flavors, or even harmful byproducts like acetaldehyde, which can cause headaches, nausea, and general malaise if consumed in significant amounts. Yogurt alone, especially unsweetened Greek yogurt, has a moderate glycemic index, GI, because its protein and fat slow sugar absorption. When you add honey, you raise the GI of the combined dish, making it more likely to cause a postprandial, post-meal glucose spike. For someone with impaired insulin sensitivity or prediabetes, eating large spoonfuls of honey-laden yogurt can push blood sugar above safe thresholds, leading to an insulin surge, potential reactive hypoglycemia later, and long-term worsening of insulin resistance. Finally, if you purchase refrigerated yogurt, open the container, add honey, and then let it sit on the counter. For example, while attending to other tasks, you disrupt the cold chain. The moment yogurt's temperature climbs above 6 to 8 degrees, saying 43 to 46 degrees, bacteria multiply faster than they would at refrigerator temperature. Adding honey, especially if the honey itself is at room temperature, speeds up the warming process. That's a recipe for accidental foodborne illness. The bottom line is that if you want to combine honey with yogurt, use commercially pasteurized refrigerated yogurt. Keep the yogurt chilled until the last possible moment. Add honey only when you're ready to eat. Don't leave the honey yogurt mixture out at room temperature for more than 10 to 15 minutes. Avoid doing this with homemade yogurt or curd that's still warm from fermentation. Let homemade yogurt chill in the fridge for several hours first, then add honey. And keep portion sizes moderate. No more than 1 tablespoon of honey per half-cup serving of yogurt to control acidity and glycemic load. So now you know which foods to avoid mixing with honey and why it matters for your health. If you learned something new, give this video a like and share it with someone who uses honey every day. Don't forget to subscribe for more practical health tips and let us know in the comments if you've ever made any of these mistakes before. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.